Good evening, viewers and listeners of Concerned Citizens Media. Welcome back and nice to have you here. October 24, 2021. Thank you again for coming back. So, I'm here to just share some news with you about the war, the civil war happening in Ethiopia and other news. So, uh, the Prime Minister and his supporters are still conducting uh, their airstrikes on civilian targets in Mekelle, maybe for the sixth or fifth times now. So the bloody war continues despite this air bombardment by Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, as the Tigrans call him, Gujile Abiy Ahmed, plus his supporters, the core supporters of his actions. But those air bombardments didn't reverse anything. So the fight for by TDF forces, the fight for Kombolcha, Dase, and other cities continue. They are in a very close proximity. So the air bombardment, I know, is hurting civilians and destroying public properties, but it didn't change their movement, the war movement, to capture these major cities and others. So the war, the bloody war, the heavy war, the civil war continues uh, despite the calls by international communities, by US, by European Union to stop, to declare ceasefire and negotiate. So Abiy Ahmed and his supporters determined to continue the war, the bloody war, by using massive civilians, just giving them very short training, 1 month or less, and by providing them knives and machetes. So they determined to defend the cities in that way instead of ending this conflict through dialogue and reconciliation. So the heavy war still continue. That's the update, and I have some news to read on this one and a video to share at the end. The other thing is Hachalu Hundessa Mali Malisa is getting recognition on a Grammy Award. This music Mali Malisa is nominated for a 2022 Grammy Award. So that's a good thing. So we wish uh, Hachalu Hundessa, the family, and his fans to get to win the nomination. About maybe 12,000 voters in this that can involve with this music and others, and they will nominate the best album in the world. So the nomination is good. The winning is most important. So we are watching it, and if Mali Malisa of Hachalu Hundessa, may win the Grammy nomination in 2022. So we are watching it. We will follow it and report to you. So it is very encouraging for his sacrifice for the freedom fighters and the recognition. So that's one. And the other bad news for Oromo freedom fighters is Facebook banning uh, Oromo Liberation Army from posting and sharing uh, its activity on Facebook. I don't know why the Facebook declared that, but it is very sad. it is disappointing news of this week. That's very bad. Before that, it happened against Oromo activists and social media users who are using Facebook, banned for a week, for months, for 2 months. It happened to many, many Oromo activists. So we don't know the reason. So there is something maybe behind. It should be investigated, identified why, or Facebook is challenging the Oromos in this way. So these are some of the things, and the most serious thing is the suspension of United Nations humanitarian aid to Tigray because of Abiy Ahmed's, Mr. Gujile's irresponsible action in Mekelle. So purposely they conducted their, very bad act against the United Nations flight. So the United Nations now suspended all flights to Mekelle. So Abiy Ahmed and his supporters will be happy for now. Let's read some other news and share some videos. Thank you again for coming back. Fresh Ethiopia airstrike hit new Tigray targets. This is shared by Will Ross, Africa editor, BBC World Service. The Ethiopian government says the military has launched airstrikes on rebel positions in the north and west of the Tigray region, expanding the range of its aerial bombardments. Previous airstrikes over the last week had all been in the regional capital Mekelle, but these ones hit Adwa and Tsebri. The government said they had targeted Tigray People's Liberation Front (TPLF) facilities, but a number of civilians are reported to have died. A TPLF spokesperson said no military targets had been hit and suggested missiles had struck buildings already destroyed by Ethiopian and Eritrean forces. With all phone communications cut off in Tigray, it will be hard to verify the outcome of the airstrikes, especially as they are in the fairly remote areas. They are also far from where the fiercest fighting has been taking place in the neighboring Amhara region. So credit BBC. So that's expanding the airstrike into Adwa and Tsebri. So this is a dangerous escalation, and we call on the international community, the United States, to use their power to stop this madman, Mr. Gujile Ahmed, Abiy Ahmed. Please save lives, save the properties, and stop the suffering of the Tigrayans. Please employ no-fly zone. No-fly zone. You can do it. So your threats, your warnings are not getting attention. I hope you are planning to do something, but please, people are suffering in Mekelle. Please employ no-fly zone if possible. Representative Sherman calls for naval forces in Ethiopia conflict. U.S. diaspora frustrated by messaging. As the humanitarian crisis in northern Ethiopia continues to escalate, lawmakers on the Hill are calling on the government of Ethiopia and Eritrea to stop the violence. But Representative Brad Sherman, Democrat California, is looking to the United States Navy for help, which is good. I am reluctant to expose American armed forces to risk their safety at any time, Sherman said during a House Foreign Affairs Committee hearing this week. But the American Navy could interrupt Eritrean commerce on the high seas at any time, and it would certainly be just to do so, as long as Eritrea blockades humanitarian aid to the people of Tigray. But the congressman's call for action by U.S. force does not appear to be universally shared by committee lawmakers. Credit House of Representatives Foreign uh, Foreign Policy Committee. So that's a suggestion by a congressman to use U.S. Navy uh, and to block Eritreans, you know, commercial line, which is good because they are not listening. Abiy is not listening. Isaias is not listening. He is still there. So they they doing this will help. I know the House of Representatives, they have some resolution there, but it takes time until something comes out from House of Representatives, from the White House, from State Department, from European unions. These things are taking time, and in the meantime, people are suffering, and public properties are destroyed. This is from State Department, U.S. State Department, on a daily briefing, and so this is Mr. Price giving answer for reporters. I issued a tweet on this recently, but let me just reiterate that we do remain gravely concerned by the escalating violence, by expansion of fighting in northern Ethiopia and in regions throughout the country, and given the growing risk to the unity and the integrity of the Ethiopian state. Escalating fighting is so concerning in a large part because it undermines efforts that are critical to keep civilians safe and to deliver humanitarian relief to those Ethiopians in dire need. That's why we have urged all parties to end hostilities immediately and for the Ethiopian government and the TPLF to enter into a negotiation without preconditions toward a sustainable ceasefire. A ceasefire will help establish conditions for inclusive and credible dialogue to find a political settlement to long-standing grievances that, in many ways, have led to the conflict. In terms of your question on Ethiopia, we are considering the full range of tools at our disposal to address the worsening crisis in northern Ethiopia, and that includes the use of financial sanctions. And I think you know, Corner, that last month the administration introduced an important new tool in the form of executive order establishing a new sanctions regime that authorizes the Treasury Department, in consultation with us, the State Department, to impose sanctions in connection with the conflict, including on those in the Ethiopian government, the Eritrean government, the TPLF, the Amara regional government, who are responsible for or complicit in prolonging the conflict, obstructing humanitarian access, or preventing a ceasefire. We are absolutely prepared to take action under this executive order to impose targeted sanctions against those responsible for the ongoing crisis. We are at the same time measures to mitigate any unintended effects of any sanctions imposed under this executive order on the people of Ethiopia and the wider region. Even as we look at ways to potentially hold accountable the perpetrators of these acts, our cardinal rule is to do nothing that would harm the people of Ethiopia. We also seek to ensure personal remittances to non-sanctioned persons, humanitarian assistance to at-risk populations, and longer-term assistance program and commercial activities that address basic human needs continue to follow to Ethiopia and the greater Horn of Africa region through legitimate and transparent channels. So we are going to continue do both things to hold accountable those who are responsible for some of these atrocities act, even as we continue to support the humanitarian needs and imperatives of the people of Ethiopia. So that is State Department still, the sanctions are on the way. Still, the State Department is, with the help of Treasury Department, working on it. It's not final yet. And in the meantime, still the State Department is calling the Ethiopian government and others involved in this conflict to have a ceasefire, declare a ceasefire, and have a dialogue to end this bloody war. So instead of this, Abiy Ahmed and his supporters are using air bombardment and expanding to other towns in Tigray. So that is the situation. They are not listening. I hope these sanctions will come quicker than later. Okay, Uganda suspected bomb attack in Kampala after terror warning. One person has been killed and 3 others injured in a suspected terrorist bombing in Uganda capital Kampala. The blast went off on Saturday night at a bar, killing a 20-year-old waitress and scattering panicked revelers onto the streets outside. Police say 3 suspect bombers disguised themselves as customers and planted explosive in a plastic bag. No group or individual has admitted the attack, which the president described as a terrorist act. The explosion comes 1 week after the UK government issued an alert about terrorism in Uganda. It warned British citizens in the East African country where attacks of this kind are rare that terrorists are very likely to try to carry out attacks. It advised them to be vigilant at public places, including restaurants and bars. More people in more places trust BBC. Okay. Police have cordoned off the scene of the blast, a venue popular for roast pork and beer in a largely residential area on the city outskirts. A local mayor told the BBC the community were fearful and wondered why anyone would target their neighborhood. Police spokesman Fred Inanga said the suspected bombers ordered food and drinks at the bar before placing the bag under a table. The explosion went off moments after they left. Investigators have found nails, ball bearings, and other metal fragments, Mr. Inanga added, suggesting the explosion was caused by an improvised explosive device. Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni said on Twitter that the blast seems to be a terrorist act and promised to catch the perpetrators. The public should not fear. We shall defeat this criminality like we have defeated all the other criminality committed by the pigs who don't respect life, he said. In 2010, 74 people were killed in bomb blasts that went off at venues in Kampala, where football fans were watching the screening of the World Cup final. The mastermind of the attacks from the Islamic militant group Al-Shabaab are serving life sentence. Credit BBC. Okay, this is not good for South Sudan. U.S. legislators called to identify new leaders in South Sudan. October 22, okay, this 2 days ago. October 21, U.S. lawmakers endorsed a resolution calling to review U.S. policy toward South Sudan and identify new stakeholders with whom Washington can work to achieve peace and stability in the East African country. Senators Jim Rich, a Republican, Idaho ranking member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and Cory Booker, Democrat, New Jersey, introduced Resolution 5330 on 23rd September. The lawmakers underscored the continued instability in the country and pointed an accusing finger to its leaders, saying they caused violence and corruption in the country. Adopted on 19 October, the bipartisan resolution calls on the Secretary of State to lead a comprehensive interagency process to develop a revitalized United States policy toward South Sudan. The purpose of this review is to identify a broader range of South Sudanese political and civilian stakeholders beyond President Kiir and First Vice President Machar, with whom the United States may work for the promotion of peace, democracy, and development, accountability, transparency, and anti-corruption efforts, reads the resolution. In a statement released after the passage of the resolution, Reid said that it sends a direct signal to South Sudan leaders that their failure to lead and corrupt behavior is not only hurting its citizens but the future of their country. S. RES 380 serves as a vital blueprint to recalibrate the United States bilateral relationship with South Sudan and act more decisively in the interest of its people, he added. Bush and Obama administration played a vital role to ensure the independence of South Sudan. Also, the United States provided humanitarian and military assistance to build up the youngest nation. Credit Sudan Tribune. So, yeah, that's South Sudan situation is alarming. Even the Sudan is also in turmoil for some reason. These people don't agree, don't negotiate on a peaceful political power sharing and other issues. So South Sudan got independent, but still the conflict, the corruption, all as challenges are there, and the Sudan also. So the United States is now changing its position, looking for another leadership in South Sudan. Okay, this is the last one, I believe so. Turkey expel U.S. Turkey to expel U.S. envoy and 9 others, Erdogan says. Istanbul. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan said on Saturday that he had told his foreign ministry to expel the ambassadors of the United States and 9 other Western countries for demanding the release of philanthropist Osman Kavala. 7 of the ambassadors represent Turkey's NATO allies, and the expansions, if carried out, would open the deepest rift with the West in Erdogan's 19 years in power. Kavala, a contributor to numerous civil society groups, has been in prison for 4 years, charged with financing nationwide protests in 2013 and with involvement in a failed coup in 2016. He has remained in detention while his latest trial continues and denies the charges. In a joint statement on October 18, the ambassadors of Canada, Denmark, France, Germany, the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, Finland, New Zealand, and the United States called for a just and speedy resolution to Kavala's case and for his urgent release. They were summoned by the Foreign Ministry, which called the statement irresponsible. I gave the necessary order to our foreign minister and said what must be done. What must be done? These 10 ambassadors must be declared persona non grata, which means undesirable at once. You will sort it out immediately, Erdogan said in a speech in the northwestern city of Eskişehir. They will know and understand Turkey. The day they don't know and understand Turkey, they will leave, he said to cheers from the crowd. The United States and the French embassies and the White House didn't immediately respond to requests for comment. A U.S. State Department spokesperson said it was aware of the reports and was seeking clarity from the Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Erdogan has said previously that he plans to meet U.S. President Joe Biden at a summit of the Group of 20 or G20 major economists in Rome next week. One diplomatic source said de-escalation was possible given Turkey has now made its stance very clear and given the potential diplomatic fallout from such a move ahead of the G20 summit and the United Nations Climate Summit in Glasgow starting at the end of the month. No instructions have been given to embassies, the source said, adding that it was possible a decision may be taken at Turkey's cabinet meeting on Monday. Norway said its embassy had not received any notification from Turkish authorities. Our ambassador has not done anything that warrants an expansion, said the ministry's chief spokesperson, Trude Masedi, adding that Turkey was well aware of Norway's view. We will continue to call on Turkey to comply with democratic standards and the rule of law to which the country committed itself under the European Human Rights Convention, Masedi said. New Zealand's foreign ministry said on Sunday it will not comment until it hears anything formally through official channels, and added in an emailed statement that New Zealand values its relationship with Turkey. So credit for this one is Reuters. So that's Erdogan after he survived the coup in 2016. He is untouchable. He will not tolerate any criticism of his policies. He will not tolerate any opposition political activities in Turkey, and that is the situation. So he got massive support for now, and the hope for political freedom, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, freedom of forming government, political party in Turkey, and any criticism from Western countries will not be tolerated by President Erdogan. And he also has something to do with the drones operating in Ethiopia. So our leaders are also watching the dictators in Eritrea, the dictators somewhere else. They are watching. They want to be like that. They don't tolerate any opposition view. So that's all on the reading part, and let's conclude with two videos. So the first one is about humanitarian crisis in Tigray. The second one is about Russia and there we go. Let's share it.
The sound of celebratory gunfire rings out in Tigray's capital, Mekelle, as captured government soldiers are corralled in trucks and paraded. Mekelle has been the epicenter of conflict between government forces and Tigrayan rebels for almost a year.
Captured Ethiopian soldiers.
Airstrikes have been raining down on the city for 4 days, and the government says it's aiming at military targets. Some local reports say it's also hitting civilian infrastructure.
For the good part of the year, we had no access to the Tigray region. We haven't had access for the many weeks since June. So again, it's allegations going back and forth between the Ethiopian side and the TPLF. But what we know for certain is that millions of Ethiopians have become displaced. There are conditions of famine.
The latest airstrikes have forced the UN to abort a humanitarian flight from landing.
I think this illustrates just one more example of the direct impact of conflict on our humanitarian operations. Plain and simple. Right now, our flights are suspended, the lack of access for fuel trucks, for cash, all the basic necessities that fuel our humanitarian operations so we can help the millions of people in Tigray.
Doctors at Mekelle's Ada Referral Hospital are seeing firsthand the effects of a severe shortage of food and fuel. Worried parents sit by the beds of their children.
The doctors tell me she's malnourished. My daughter is sick, and I'm terrified for her.
The UN says acute malnourishment among children has surged in the Tigray province. It says the conflict-ravaged region has descended into the world's worst hunger crisis in a decade.
He's wounded because of war and suffering from lack of food.
And there's no clear end in sight. While analysts say government forces and Tigrayan rebels remain far from a compromise. Many remain vulnerable to starvation, disease and dangers of a protracted conflict. Laura Gardner-Manley, Al Jazeera.
If you want to get into crypto, you need to check out Coinbase. Coinbase is the primary platform for buying, selling, earning, and learning about crypto. I like how user-friendly the platform is and how they encourage you to learn about crypto by offering rewards for watching their...
Russian and Chinese warships have held their first joint patrols in the western part of the Pacific Ocean. Russia's defense ministry said in a statement on Saturday that the patrols took place from October 17th to the 23rd. Moscow and Beijing have cultivated closer military and diplomatic ties in recent years at a time when their relations with the West have soured. The pair staged naval cooperation drills in the Sea of Japan earlier in October. The naval maneuvers have been closely watched by Japan, which said earlier this week that a group of 10 vessels from China and Russia sailed through the Tsugaru Strait, separating Japan's main island and its northern island of Hokkaido. The strait is regarded as international waters, and Russia's defense ministry said in a statement that the tasks of the patrols were the demonstration of the Russian and Chinese state flags, maintaining of peace and stability in the Asia-Pacific region, and guardianship of the subjects of maritime economic activities of the two countries.
Okay, so that's all I have for today. That is, as I said before, these are the things we have to watch. The activities of or joint activities of Russia and China, and the activities of North Korea, and also China's activities on Taiwan, plus the Iran nuclear issues. So these are the major, some of the major issues we have to follow as a global citizens. And so this joint military activity of between, Russia and China is alarming, especially for Japan, South Korea, and plus to the United States as a global partner with especially with Japan and South Korea. So that's the news for today, and I hope maybe we can share good news, maybe the ending of civil war in Ethiopia, or the coming of some kind of serious penalties for not listening to the global community, especially from the United States and the European Union in coming, hopefully, days, not months, because humans are suffering, properties are destroyed, and bloodshed, is alarming. You see, the captured Ethiopian soldiers taken to Tigray. You see it in multiple numbers. You see them on TV, various news outlets. The days are staggering, but still we don't have a listening ear in Ethiopia. Gugile is not listening. His supporters are not listening. They want to continue the war. So now they are expanding the air bombardment into Adwa and other cities. So we need immediate attention before this thing become out of control. It's already out of control, and it became very bloody. So we just pray, and we are watching it, and I will update you, my listeners, if I see something, if I hear something in coming days. Thank you again. Please share, subscribe, like, and comment on my videos. So long, everyone.